These images today made me think about the complexities that we have as being true followers of the footsteps of Jesus Christ. Where some of these pictures may seem to conflict with each other, I feel that there is a true bonding connection of Christ within each. Where some might say that you can't do one and the other, I feel that we can be followers of Jesus Christ and see Christ in all of these places. Sometimes our lives of division become overbearing. Sometimes our own agendas and wishes become so strong that we can't see other possibilities. One of the beauties that I see within this picture is always remembering that Christ exists in the middle of all things as the beacon of peace. As we live in a world that has ever spreading differences that causes a great chasm between one thing and the next, I do believe in a Christ that will be revealed in each place. Sometimes that divide, even with acknowledging Christ is there, becomes a moment of conflict with those that we have conversations with. We say that Christ is there, but we say that Christ is there because. As I make these statements, I think of a statement that a dear friend once shared with me, that Christ did not come into this world to be the answer, but Christ came into this world to be present. See, we see these pictures as places of division when we see Christ as the end-all answer. Thankfully, that we do have a promise in the deity of Jesus Christ, that he is the one that came to complete things. But when we only look for Christ as the answer, we forget to see that Christ is within a journey to help us see new answers and new explanations. When we see Christ as the answer, sometimes we only see the answers that we're looking for. But when we look for the Christ that came to be present, we see a Christ that is active in places that we never dreamed we would journey to. And through seeing Christ in those areas, we see the potential of going to those places as well, to be the ones that washes the feet of the strangers. Today, as we look at these pictures, I want us to acknowledge the complexity of living, while that we also acknowledge the reality that Christ is present for one and all. Looking at this picture, it makes me think of many multi-generational things that are starting to drift away. One of those things thrives in the world of the arts, movies that go from generation to generation, bands like the Beatles that go from generation to generation, movies like Star Wars, television shows that find new ways to come back to life. The arts really help different generations remain together. When I saw this picture today, I know it's AI generated and I want to apologize for that, but this made me think of people that I have lost in my life and the connections that I had with them because of this specific band. In 1985, the Monkees had their 20th anniversary, and MTV, as a part of the 20th anniversary of the Monkees, started to show their television program once again. And through sharing that television program on MTV, sparked a whole new range of fans linked into Monkey Mania. I was one of those people. I looked forward to the day-long marathons of the Monkees on MTV. I looked forward as the Monkees began to be revived on UHF television stations and being able to watch that program frequently. Being able to watch the Monkees gave me a madcap way of seeing humor as well as hearing music that transcends generations. The other thing that gave me was a connection to my aunt. My aunt was also a Monkees fan, a Partridge Family fan. And as I began to grow interest in the Monkees, she began to share her records for me that she got in that time frame. Headquarters, Head, all of these great Monkees records that I was able to have a connection with her through because of this music being brought back to life on MTV. I hope that there's other multi-generational things that exist, again, like Star Wars, like the Beatles, that helps generation from generation have something to talk about. Our worlds have changed so drastically. The way that we deal with the real world has changed drastically. But hopefully there are still generational things that transcend the generations, that help one generation to the next find a place that connects them, as they also try to figure out how to help each other deal with how the world is changing. Recently, I've begun reading John Moxley's book, Mox. It came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it's sort of a memoir of John Moxley, stringing his time between leaving WWE and arriving into All Elite Wrestling. And there's 2 sections of it that has really touched my heart. Believe me, how could you believe a pastor making a statement of reading a professional wrestler's memoir and saying there was something that touched my heart? There was a couple of interactions in his life that he had that his dad had sparked that just really caught my attention. One was conversations that he shared that he had with his dad, and he said his dad told him to always remember that he's the good guy. And John Moxley shared through remembering that you are the good guy, even in the toughest decisions that you have to make, you have this measuring stick of to honor as you make these decisions. If you're the good guy, you would react to this situation in this way. If you're the good guy, you would handle a situation in this specific way. And that didn't remove him from shenanigans or anything. Literally, within his explanation, he even shared there are times that he had to step into things and be confrontational. But as we all know from watching the old Western movies, if you're the good guy, sometimes we need the Lone Ranger or Colt Kirby or someone of that nature to be the one that confronts confrontation. So I've been thinking about that a lot, especially with my presence at different advocacy gatherings and the necessity of being a voice for the marginalized in some very hard moments. So then he carried one more conversation out about what it means to be the good guy, and he used this narrative of a time that his dad asked he and his buddy to do a moving for him. And out of nowhere, he was told he could not tell anybody what they were doing. They could not tell anybody who sent them. They immediately went with their dad to a grocery store and bought all sorts of food and things. And through the purchase of that food, they went and became unknown angels for another individual. So as we think about what it means to be the good guys, think about the places that sometimes that we address confrontation, and we're also the unknown angels that bring peace. Recently, I've had some interpersonal wrestling that I've been doing within my soul over certain things that have been happening in the state of professional wrestling, the state of popular culture that I love so much. And I have seen over time very specific things be beneficial and beautiful that now, because of other situations, have become harmful and frustrating. I think about a legacy of writing with the Harry Potter series, and how that over times J.K. Rowling has come out with this very strong transgender or transphobic narrative, and it has tattered something that has also been a very beneficial narrative within the life. This challenge of the underdog Harry Potter saving the world, and just the hurt and the pain that comes because of these new feelings and emotions from J.K. Rowling's. I think about with my greatest love, if you've seen my things, professional wrestling, even within professional wrestling, I have been dealing with this overreach of what do I do with this thing that I love, as it is being shown in a very harmful light in the real world. I think about WWE's investment in Saudi Arabia. I think about the leadership, the current leadership of the WWE being so entrenched in a relationship with the current presidential administration. I deal with all these things, and I go try to work through this concept of dealing with separating the art from the artist, but sometimes the artist's wrongs are so loud and so strong, it's hard to separate them. When I find myself in these moments, I kind of look around for individuals that are still being the difference that I need within those situations. I think about Gigi Dolan's that has canceled some dates because of where the indie shows that she was going to work were going to. I think about Mick Foley completely separating from WWE. I think about every child star from the Harry Potter series of the movies speaking out in defense for transgender children. One of the things that I've been able to find hope in is that even in these hard moments, there are still voices screaming out to set the marginalized free. This picture is a beautiful Catholic church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This picture was put out by the Pennsylvania Auto Authority, Transit Authority, and it just caught my eye, the beauty of this. The LGBTQIA plus bannered bus driving in front of this big, beautiful cathedral. Seeing that it came from the Pittsburgh Travel Authority, I originally assumed that the cathedral in this picture was the one that writer, director, podcaster Kevin Smith used for his film Dogma. So looking at the beauty of the aesthetics of this picture, but also thinking of the blessings that I have received from Kevin Smith's film Dogma, I wanted to sit down and make this video about the unexpected places that we can find blessings. I didn't expect to flip by this picture on Instagram, but I did. And because I had my eyes open and they were open that any possible thing could pop up to grab my attention, I was able to see this picture. Now, this picture is not of the cathedral that Kevin Smith used in the film Dogma, but because I was aware of this picture, I was aware of other connectors within the world that made me think of that film. I want us to look at the beauty of this picture, but I want to think about how there is a main subject in this movie Dogma that has been an ideal point in my life. Chris Rock is in this film, and he plays the 13th apostle, and within that, Rufus, and as Rufus, he does this challenge. It's a challenge of having ideas, but not having belief. Sometimes we get so locked into our beliefs that we don't allow the ideas to flow through our lives. Right now in my life, I'm dealing with ideas that exist within my spirit, and I need to find a way to adjust those ideas and set them free to thrive in a world full of beliefs. If you're wrestling with things, keep your eyes open and see the beauties. When you see the beauty, it may not be the exact thing that you're looking for, but it may open your eyes to the possibility of thinking through things and finding something beautifully different. A few years ago, I went on a journey of going to places that proclaimed to be all-inclusive areas. Places that held no judgment over race, creed, sexuality. I wanted to find a place that I could truly say embodied an image that all were truly welcome. I found that. During this journey of wrestling matches, punk rock shows, and the like, I walked into the La Paloma movie theater at midnight and sat down to watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The first thing I noticed was the gleeful hellos from people, even though that I was dressed in my Kevin Smith Fat Man Beyond hockey jersey and much others were more of a gothic flair. I noticed individuals that were eager to hand out prop bags and to welcome a new face into this new area. I noticed people of every ethnicity and lifestyle, the like, all welcome and being together for the same purpose. I noticed everyone being invited into the same shenanigans, being taught how to participate. In this journey of looking for a place of absolute inclusion, I finally found it sitting at the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Recently, I've been watching the world news. I've been seeing the events in the world, and I wonder of the possibility of actually having any form of full inclusion anymore. There is no safe places. There are no calm places that an individual can just sit and be themselves without worrying about governmental laws taking place to extract their civil rights. I watch people of color being arrested solely because that they are people of color. I've watched our lives and our country go back 100 years in its practices and just pushing aside and marginalize so many more. As I think about the pleasantry of being in this wholly inclusive element, I think about ways that I can recreate this all inclusivity within my worship environment. But more, I think about how to create the peace that I felt on that evening at the La Paloma Theater at midnight, watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show. There is so much that is not peaceful. There's so much that's out of rest at this time. And we need to be individuals willing to create openness and peace.